Hey, what's up, guys? I just here to share a little something with you. It's crazy. Just God gave me these things, and I don't know what to do with them. So might as well record it. My wife is already getting tired of me preaching all the time to her. Every time I hear something, I call her up, and then I keep talking and talking.
I'm not.
So I figure, hey, why not? I'm sure the gospel is not for us to keep to ourselves, so I might as well share it with you guys. I was just thinking about how God's amazing. He even when you're not walking in His ways, even if you're not a Christian, even if you haven't accepted Jesus, even if you haven't met Jesus, He always has a way of putting you in the right place, putting you in the right hands, and just making sure that you're around the right people. Because when He comes to find you, and he when you know Him and you get to know Him, He changes your heart. He changes the way you are. He changes the way you treat people. He teaches you how to love, and He teaches you what love is. And I just keep thinking to myself, I've been to a lot of things in my life, probably so many things that people have ever gone through their whole life, and so many trials and tribulations, at times where I didn't want to give my life to Christ, and if you don't come for love, you're gonna come through pain, and I came through pain. I came to Christ, I was in pain. I didn't come out of my own will. And anyways, nobody's dragged into the gospel. Nobody is dragged into hearing the gospel or into accepting Jesus, kicking and screaming. But anyways, and I just got to thinking, and I'm like, God put us, like Solomon said. Solomon said there's a time for everything. So it got me thinking. Uh, we 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 go through things, and we go through trials, we go through tribulations, we go through glory, we go through victories, we go through all these things, physically, spiritually, and it's amazing that the Lord always has a time for it. He always has a time for, in you and me, we might be different. In your life, it may be something else, but in my life, it's kind of like I always have seasons, and where I'm like at a different place, and I'm a professional fighter. So sometimes I'm training God puts me in a place where I train, and for months, or sometimes for years, or sometimes God puts you in a certain church, and it got me thinking. I always try and think back, and before I wasn't like this. Before I was the kind of guy that was like, if a situation went bad and it wasn't a good place to be, I always felt like, man, that was horrible. It's a horrible situation. I was hanging out with some wrong people, those guys at that meeting, or at that church, or at that club. Those guys at that gym, those guys at that house I went to, they mistreated me. But it's all about, thinking back. You got to think back to like, what was really the point of me being there? What was really the the lesson here? We got to look at the bigger picture, and everything's not about either it being a bad situation or a good situation, and forget about it. God has a plan for you. God has a plan for your life, and He wants to fulfill that purpose, but He needs to put you through certain situations where you're going to learn certain things, and you're going to learn how to deal with different people. And I've been around places where I have like I have some ego. I have a problem with that, and God's been working on me lately, and I've been to places where I was around some people who were pretty high, and just watching them letting their ego get a hold of them, and let their ego uh, kind of decide their life, and let the ego run everything. It kind of opened my eyes, because God put me there, and He put me around certain people. I'm like, it got me thinking to the point where I was like, man, that's really ugly. It's like when like, let's say you wear a certain clothes or a certain T-shirt, and you're like, you know. You think it's cool, you think it looks good on you, but then let's say you see somebody wearing it outside, or somewhere, and you look at it, and you look from far away, because now you're not wearing it, So you can't really, when you're wearing it, you can't really see it. But then when you look at it and somebody else is wearing it, and you get to thinking like, wow, that's how I look. And that's what had me thinking. I was like, man, this is it's real. It's a real humbling situation where the Lord takes you to places sometimes to say, hey, look, this is the way you're acting. Look at that. And sometimes to minister to people, sometimes to give somebody, a hand and help them come up, or sometimes people have to give you a hand, and he puts certain people in your life to help you do that and help you overcome a certain trial and help you get over a hurdle or something. And I think it's amazing. I think we should all just sit back and realize that we're not in this situation because it's for nothing. We are in the situation that we're in. It's because it's a learning experience. A lot of people have the mistake, and they have this in their mind. They think, I asked God for patience, so I think magically he's going to give me patience, and that is not how God works. God doesn't do miracles like magic. God does things the way he wants them to do so that he could be glorified. And sometimes when we ask for patience, God's going to bring you to a situation where he wants you to be patient, and he wants you to work out your patience so you can build it up and become a better person. And a lot of times it could be patience with some other people. Certain things with me was my ego, and that is why that sometimes we go through the desert, and sometimes we go through in your marriage, in your friendships, if even if it's a relationship with a brother or a sister, with your mom and dad, and especially being that it's so important that we deal with people correctly, and dealing with parents and dealing with siblings and stuff. We have to, because that's what God calls us to be, a family. And just like we are a real family physically in the church, we are a family, and we are a spiritual family. And that way we need to know how to work with people, because people are looking at you. They're looking the way you are. They're looking the way you act. So it wouldn't be good for me to try and teach somebody something and try to give them a word of encouragement or something. But he sees that I've always been the kind of guy who's always have a bad ego. Always let the best, ego get the best of me, or never been humble, in any situation. So I really can't be a help to them. I really can't be an example because I am not being a good example. So that's why I really believe Solomon was a man that God asked him. He said, hey, Solomon, what do you want? Solomon was a king. God gave him a promise and said, if you and your people follow me, I will give you all things. I will never take my hand off of Israel. God promised me and you that if you believe in him and if you keep all his commandments, he will put his hand on you and he will never leave. And Solomon asked him for wisdom. He didn't ask for money. He didn't ask for riches, gold. He didn't ask for anything. He asked for wisdom. And God said, because you asked for that, I will make you the most wise man in the world, and I will make you the most richest man in the world. And he was. And he says that there is a time for everything. In Ecclesiastes chapter 3, he says there's a season for every activity under heaven. A time to be born, a time to die, a time to plant, a time to uproot, time to kill, time to heal, time to tear down and time to build, time to weep and laugh, time to mourn and dance, time to scatter stones and time to gather them, time to embrace, time to refrain, time to search, time to give up, time to keep, time to throw away. There's a time to tear, time to mend. There's a time to be silent, time to speak, time to love, and a time to hate. Time to war, time for peace. And I believe like Solomon's kingdom was a time for peace. He didn't really have much war. His father, on the other hand, David, was a man of battle. He always was in battle. There was a lot of war back in the times when he was king, and that's just like an example right there. And just think about it. Look around you, see what God's trying to tell you. God's trying to teach you something. God's trying to show you something that you don't know. He's trying to work something in you that is weaker, or. like I said, he goes back to the beginning. You know, me is sometimes it was my ego. Sometimes I'm not humble enough to say sorry to somebody or to my wife or commit you know, simple things like that that really makes a difference. And there was a time in my life I was around some very egotistic, high ego people, and it changed me. It changed me because I looked at it and I looked at myself, and it was kind of like a eye opener, you know. And that's something I wanted to share with you guys. Hope you guys enjoy and have a blessed night.